guys, I'm back with Ron for another edition of Ask Ron. This week, the first question comes from David and Autumn in Washington.
David and Autumn.
They say...
This must be Autumn Brown.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
It says, how do you get a mortgage broker to work with you to supply the letter to the seller that washes out their debt so they can buy another house? I'm trying to lock up a deal, but they are wanting to build right after, and their mortgage brokers have no idea what a wraparound mortgage is, and said they would treat it as a rental income and would need 2 years seasoning. That's obviously a deal killer for them.
The problem is the mortgage broker don't know what they're talking about, and the mortgage broker doesn't produce any letter. The person who sold the house and the wraparound note mortgage was issued back to just needs to produce the note to the lender to prove to the lender that they're receiving a payment equal to the payment they're paying out. That's all they can do. And the mortgage broker, really, it's up to the bank. Some banks will require a year or so seasoning, even if it's an income stream and they've sold a house. Some banks don't. Mortgage brokers simply don't know what they're talking about. If they do, go get another broker or go get another lender.
Our next question comes from Brian Edwards. He's in our own backyard in Florida. He said, on the warranty deed to trustee in the first paragraph for grantors, it ends with, under provisions of section. What does this mean? Well,
there's several states that don't even have a section concerning land trusts. Frankly, I never put anything in it. I just leave it blank. So that's your answer. Don't worry about it.
And then our next question comes from Anders Carlson. He's also in Florida.
Okay.
He said, okay, I'm thinking about what happens to the money in my IRA. Can I buy mutual funds with the money?
Yes.
Okay. He says, so after I start one, is it correct that it has to stay in there for 5 years?
No, it's not correct. Here's the deal. Once you open a Roth IRA, there's a 5-year term by which there's no early withdrawal penalty. Now, early withdrawal penalty does not apply to your contributions. It only applies to the profit that you make in it. If you take any of that profit out within the first 5 years, you have to pay a 10% early withdrawal penalty. Now, let's say you opened an IRA 10 years ago and you closed it for some reason, that 5 years started when you opened your first Roth IRA.
Alrighty. And our last question says, hi Ron, Autumn here again. She says, I have Anderson legal advisors who mostly work with real estate investors, and I asked about the standard lease option because an attorney here said it was illegal. So I sent over his email to them, and they responded saying this: what you are doing is not illegal in Washington state, but it does pose a serious risk if not structured properly. You cannot offer a lease option on a property you do not own, as this would be considered fraud. It says, my concerns here are if I assign my option to them and they don't buy, or worse, I have to evict them down the road, does that leave me in a bad position?
Well, first of all, if you ask an attorney the wrong question, you're going to get the wrong answer. And since you didn't send Anderson Law Group the lease option agreement that I provided, most likely, which clearly gives you the right to sublease the property if you want to, they probably gave you the wrong answer. You have every right to put a lease option tenant buyer in the house if the seller gives you that right, and my agreement does. So I'd recheck on that legal opinion. In fact, I respect the Anderson Law Group. I know them very well. Done a lot of business with them in the past, but I don't think they clearly understood your question. Now, you said something about assigning a lease option agreement. I don't assign an agreement I get with a seller to a buyer. I use 2 totally different agreements. The agreement I use to lease option it from the seller is to protect you. The one that I use to put the tenant buyer in there is to protect you. So obviously, you're not protecting the seller by using the wrong agreement. So if you're going to assign a lease option agreement, and you know you're going to do that going in, I'd actually use the long form one, the one with a table of contents on it, between you and the seller. And then if you want to assign that, you're actually giving the seller good protection. But there's nothing stopping you from assigning them, and there's nothing stopping you from sandwich lease optioning them either, except in the state of Texas. Can't do it in Texas. You can assign in Texas, but you can't sandwich lease and collect a non-refundable deposit in Texas. But I know of no law in any other state that prohibits you from sandwich leasing a property.
All right, that's all I have this week.
Okay. All right, guys. Well, I'll see you next week. And keep paying attention because we're still trying to work on getting more seats available at our summit in Nashville in January. Not successful yet, but I think we're going to be able to free up some extra seats. So I'll let you know as soon as we do. And if there's any questions that you need answered, get them in here. And if you go on the Gold Club site and you go to the training section and you can't find a lesson on there about something you want a lesson on, let me know. I'll create a lesson for you. You know how long it takes me to create a 10-minute lesson? 10 minutes. So get them in here. I have no problem creating them. I can't think of everything, so it's your questions that generate these training modules. So it's up to you. Participate. Let me know what's bugging you. And even if there's already a module on there, it might be time to update it. So let's hear from you. See you next week.